and welcome to the Forward Unto Dawn podcast, the show about the lore and universe of the Halo franchise. This is episode number 48. I'm David, and I'm joined by my usual co-host, Danny.
Idly holy.
So in case you have been living under a rock, the Halo TV series is finally here. It premiered on March 24th, 2022, and its 9-episode run will conclude in May. We've already got a second season. Is supposed to be coming. And we're going to do a proper talk about the series once it wraps up. But 3 episodes in, I was interested in talking about what we've seen thus far. And, you know, to offer a different perspective than the guys who have spent more than a decade running a Halo lore site, though. I've recruited my friend Ashley. Hello.
Hi, I'm Ashley.
Well, why don't you clue us into your Halo knowledge, your background?
So I would say I am kind of a casual gamer. Used to be more of a serious gamer, but I am not as familiar with Halo as David and Danny here. I've played all of Halo 1, a little bit of Halo 3, a little bit of Halo 4, and all of ODST, and I own 5. So, again...
You have not played it, but you own it.
I own it. You own it. But I did play all of 1. I'm very proud of that because the Flood is f***ing scary. You probably have to bleep that out, but the Flood is very scary. And I'm a coward when it comes to playing games, and that is probably the only reason why I didn't continue. But I do like the series. I have read up a lot on the lore and the Wikipedia page, which I'm sure you guys have edited, so I've probably read some of your stuff.
Oh.
And Cortana's awesome.
I've written the Halo stuff on Wikipedia. I don't touch Halopedia, though. Those people are true nerds. I can't touch them.
Says the nerd.
All right, so yeah. I do. That explains the fact that you own Halo 5, but have not played it. Explains, as we are watching the 3rd episode, she made a stray comment of like, why is Chief seem so emo? He wasn't like this in the games. Like, oh, just you wait. Just you wait.
Yeah, Halo 4 cutscene Sizzlo.
Yeah. So I guess we should start. So 3 episodes in, so a third of the way. I think actually these episodes are good in that there's a nice blend between all of them. Some are much more character focused. Some are moving things forward. Some are setting up the stakes of everything. I'll start with you, Danny. What are your opinions thus far with it?
Well, the thing is, I was unsure what to expect going in because I know P.D. Wolfkill and the team were very adamant about establishing the TV show away from the games as having their own continuality and trying to appeal to a broader audience. And that's usually internet hot speak for it's going to piss off people on the internet, essentially. And it definitely did that. Yeah, for sure. But I don't think holding it by those standards would be in any way fair. Like I've had my own experience with Ellen, my wife I'm watching it with, and to be honest, I've enjoyed it for what it is, and I felt it a lot healthier to ignore what the internet's going on saying and just taking every episode as it is because there's something substantial there, which I think is worthy of our time and discussion here on a podcast than what the internet would give credit for.
All right. And Ashley?
It's a little bit unexpected because I thought it was going to follow more the video game storyline. I didn't do a lot of reading beforehand. I just saw like, ooh, live action Halo. This is going to be cool. They introduce a lot of new characters and you see a lot of character development that I didn't see in the game. And I'm definitely intrigued and I want to keep watching, but it was different than what I thought it would be going in.
Because this has been in development hell forever. So there were years of things might change, and then they had casting news, and everyone's like, oh my god, they made Captain Keyes a black man.
Oh god.
Although I do have to say, every time I see him, he seems like a totally fine actor, but I just expect him to like start saying Sergeant Johnson things because he's got like the beard and everything. He just
But diversity is very important. That I really appreciate that.
To be fair, I don't think where we're at in the episode count is enough to say or even give judgment on where Captain Keyes in the show will end up being because we've barely got a glimpse of him. It's not really fair to say he's good or bad. He's there. That's all we can say.
Well, and definitely, I mean, they are not I'm guessing based on where we're going with these episodes where they set up, oh, we're going to find this artifact that'll lead to the ring, a halo. It almost seems like maybe the second season is where they get more into game content of like the halo and all that stuff, and Master Chief blowing up aliens with Cortana.
I might be preempting things at this early in the discussion to say that I expect the season finale to be, oh, there's Halo. You know?
I mean, that seems at this point, I would say that's a pretty safe bet. But yeah, it's so, Ashley, since you do not have it, like, they are drawing on a lot of, I mean, because there's 30 something books now, Halo novels.
Oh, geez, you make me feel old when you say that like that. Holy fuck.
30 something Halo novels.
Yeah, I should share you. There's this, I think someone for Polygon before Halo Infinite came out did this hilarious like speed run through all of them. And it was funny. And he's like, at the end, he's like, I am now the Master Chief of Sadness because I have all this lore knowledge and no one wants to talk about deep Halo lore with me. I'm isolated and alone. So they're drawing a lot from that. And it's definitely, so yeah, after years of like, all right, well, they seem to be changing things. They're changing cast, like who's the people. Like they specifically had the big thing that everyone freaked out with. I mean, Black Keys is one thing, but child raised by the Covenant really, I think, was what.
Yeah, that was strange.
Yeah, Maquis. But I do actually think right now she is one of the characters I find most interesting because I'm not entirely sure. I feel like what we've set up with these 3 episodes is, okay, Chief rediscovers his humanity. Cortana is, can we trust her? But ultimately, yes, we're going to trust Cortana. They're not going to make Cortana evil again. Oh, sorry, spoilers for Halo 5.
It might take 5 seasons, okay? Let's just put that out there.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, in an infinite time scale, everything.
I've read enough spoilers to know that, yes, Cortana becomes evil and would like to have peace among the planets in a very oppressive way. So,
okay,
I got that far.
Okay, just checking. But it is interesting, I think, because I feel like the obvious thing, if you told me that character is, oh, she's going to discover her humanity and turn against the Covenant. But right now, I don't think they haven't, I think, really telegraphed that heavily that's where it's going to go. Like, I could see her just becoming more of an antagonist because she's cheaper than a bunch of prophets being on screen all the time. But they look great though.
I think the breadcrumb. I think they're putting some breadcrumbs there. There's definitely a hint of potential, like, you know, the turning their back on something they're clearly not going to do. But there's definitely breadcrumbs there to suggest, like, further on down the line things might happen in that direction. So you're not reading into nothing, is what I'm saying, for sure.
Yeah, and then you know, there at this point, I feel like a lot of the deviations, I do kind of wonder why they did them. Because obviously it's you got to adapt things, and I understand why. I do think just saying, all right, this is a completely different timeline. Things might be the same or they might be different, and don't worry about it, was probably the best option. Do the MCU style thing.
To make it clear, for our regular listeners, this is Silver Timeline, like all 10 of them. But in terms of video games, like, they've separated. What we're doing right now, what we're talking about, is the Silver Timeline, and that's a very important distinction to clarify.
Yeah.
It's not, any of our expectations mean nothing. You know what I mean? Silver Timeline is what it is, and how you view it each week. Like, whatever expectations you bring into it, it's your own fault. You know, so. And
it's. I get where people got upset because until this point, everything was canon, and especially under 343, like this thing from that web alternate reality game from 2004. Let's make that canon too. And we see that. We'll have to talk about it later when the new Halo Encyclopedia comes out, but people have been posting screenshots, and it's like, all right, every little scrap, even this concept art this guy drew that one time that everyone liked, now that's canon too. So they've always been really inclusive, and this is the first hard break, even though it's super common, obviously, with all the Marvel movies and things. So it's...
In terms of hard break, are you talking about the inclusion of the Blessed One character and Quan, the Asian woman with the very tragic haircut?
Yes, well, there's
Ooh.
We looked up her IMDb afterwards.
She is actually very attractive and a wonderful actress, but man, people did her dirty. Her hair.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
absolutely.
that's why she wanted to
Absolutely.
get off Madrigal so soon, because
Get a
all those
haircut?
kids had dire hairstyles.
I mean, to be fair, a lot of the women had pretty bad hairstyles.
Oh yeah.
Miranda Keyes looks like she has an octopus kind of clinging to the back of her head, and then the wife looked like one of the Hunger Game hosts.
Oh yeah. Soren's wife. We're saying she's just gonna like go off and read the
Let's be
next.
Eva in
Yeah.
your face.
Can we make a special effort not to mention that character, because that one character kind of removed me from a lot of everything else that was going wrong, because yeah.
She does kind of feel like she's in a different show. It's I'm not entirely sure where they're going to go with her. Well, I guess so. Starting sort of running through it. Like you said, Quan, definitely a new character. It's interesting that she's not really being used as, my assumption would be she's going to be the like point of view character where we learn all this stuff, and they haven't really used her that way.
That's kind of what I expected. Again, this is my bias from knowing that there is an established universe, there is an established expectation, and I was expecting that to be the entry point for new viewers. You watch this character. This character will basically Harry Kim all the explanations you need to explain things, and that's kind of not been what the character has been on the show.
And I don't think it's necessarily bad, because I think they pretty much, the first episode does a good job of setting up, all right, aliens, humans, and I guess I wasn't actually expecting them to do as much with the insurrectionists and like civilian politics and stuff, but they seem to be, all right, we're gonna spend some time on Madrigal, we're gonna deal with whatever that slimy dude who's in all those movies.
See,
The most British guy who's always an evil dude.
Yeah, he was on The Expanse doing the same thing like a few months ago. So yeah, absolutely, he's playing the type. But I wanted to ask, actually, in terms of like as a long-term fan, this is actually expanding upon the insurrectionists, and that area is actually being like a long-term sort of dream of me to see have that realized, to have that fleshed out. And I've always wondered how that comes across as someone who doesn't have those expectations, because the insurrectionists don't mean anything to the games. And if you just know Master Chief as that video game character, how do the insurrectionists and all that sort of boring human drama tie into how you enjoy it? Like, does that feel like Halo to you?
Honestly, it doesn't really, and that's partly why I was kind of shocked that
Yeah.
the series was developed in this way, because I never expected there to even be people against the UNSC. It seemed like everyone was gung-ho. It's like, oh, we're all in this together. We're great. And then they start
precisely,
to...
Yeah.
And they start showing that there are these rebels, and they're not exactly living in a peaceful, happy place. It's like garbage planet, garbage island.
Yeah, the flashback too. I'm not entirely sold on. I guess they wanted to really sell like why Makee, beyond just being indoctrinated. Like, oh, she's dealt with crappy humans, but she did sort of just live on trash planet apparently. So I can see why she was super happy when she went to High Charity and its Apple Store aesthetic.
It feels a bit more like pandering to the Genius Bar sort of
I think they need to
iRobot aesthetic.
upgrade or change their wardrobe and their stylists. A lot of the outfits are very tragic. This is just coming from a very lay person.
I think my favorite character outfit is definitely Soren, who just runs around with his chest plate on, but also a trench coat, which doesn't really work with wearing a giant suit of armor. So he just kind of looks like he's constantly got a puffed up chest, you know?
Is Soren an important character in the books, or?
No, so that's one of the, I think that's probably one of the best examples of taking an interesting idea that would not have worked. There was no way to do anything with that kind of character if you had stuck with main canon. Because Soren shows up only in a single short story in a 2009 collection, or 2010, Halo Evolutions. And he, it's called Pariah, I think. And he is a Spartan who washes out because he's not killed, but he's got like
A mutant hand?
yeah, he ends up like with like an oversized hand, and like I don't know if he has a hunchback or whatever, but basically he's physically disabled. He can still like run around and do things, but they specifically basically tell him you can't fight with them because you're just going to remind the other Spartans of all the people who died. So they just shove him off to do some minor thing, and he slowly develops insurrectionist sympathies.
So Master Chief did help him escape, or give him 5 minutes, or was
No.
that kind of
that
a new aspect that was
the
introduced in the
entire
show?
like Master Chief doesn't even feature really in the story, so that entire backstory is fabricated. So they really, he's, aside from a washed out Spartan who joined the rebels, there's like no real connection to those characters, but it's an interesting sort of, what if we took this idea of this guy Spartan who turned traitor and then expanded it. And he's just a fun, I like, he's just seen like a really, he's threatening death a lot to kids, which makes me think he's not a great dad. But he's got a weird sense of humor that I really like.
It makes more sense. The actor, what's the actor's name? I think it's Bokeem Woodbine.
Bokeem, yeah, Woodbine.
Yeah.
Is, I mean, that's a great name.
Yeah,
Woodbine.
first of all, his name is awesome, but actually, I think his portrayal of the character has let me enjoy the character more than I would have done otherwise. Because, to be honest, I don't think the character is that interesting, but I think his portrayal elevates it a bit more. Like his individual moments and scenes, I like watching him on screen. Is what I'm saying. I think he elevates the material.
He has a presence.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I definitely
presence,
like,
yeah,
because
yeah.
I think the second episode, it had to like spend time on the characters, but it does move a lot slower. And the fact that he is able to like keep up the energy is why I was still like, all right, this is still enjoyable. That's fun.
Speaking of Spartans and the Spartan program, I feel like the show didn't really touch upon that. It's kind of just assumed that there are 3 or 4 Spartans, with Master Chief being the leader.
There's more. I think there's more. Yeah.
There are 4. So
the number of surviving Spartans isn't the same as it is in the main canon, but there are more. But it's interesting that they are. So in Halo 5, you meet Blue Team, which is sort of the original. There's Kelly, Linda, and Fred, and those are like the main Spartans other than Chief. And obviously they went in a different direction with Kai and whatever the other one's names. I cannot remember because I don't remember Spartan.
But I think in terms of the TV show, Silver Team are like the heart of the Spartan team, like the Spartan core in UNSC.
Yeah, they're the good ones.
Yeah.
They're the best of the best.
Yeah.
And I mean, we haven't gotten that much of them, but already I feel like they still have slightly more personalities that I can tell them apart for Blue Team, which I always thought was an issue with them.
it's also great that they take off their helmets.
Oh, you like that they take off their helmets?
I think it's interesting. I don't necessarily like it.
In terms of remembering
It's
who's who, I think it's vital that they take off their helmets at this point, because I couldn't tell them apart. Unless they took their helmets off and I put a face to the person, I don't think I would have remembered them otherwise.
I think that Master Chief has probably taken off his helmet a little more than it makes sense. And they had that moment of like, oh well, all the surveillance stuff is in the helmet, so if he takes it off, then that's why. Obviously, it's just a main character. You paid all that money for the guy; he's going to take off his helmet. But
Speaking of his helmet, I kind of didn't like how in the first episode we were getting POV shots as if we were Master Chief or looking through the visuals or in the game. I thought that was very weird, but they didn't bring that back in episode 2 or 3. And I'm guessing...
You didn't like that? You thought those were weird? I thought those were fun.
I thought it was weird. Weird.
Danny, you actually did like those?
It's not that I liked them. I understood why they were doing it. It was obvious. First episode, pander to the fans, bring the fans in, link the fans into specific moments. I thought those helmet point of view shots were like the easy access point. You played the game, recognize that moment, recognize that feeling of playing that moment, and that was like an easy shortcut to bring fans in. Here's your moment, you're in, good,
I think it sometimes worked for me. I mean, point of view shots have a purpose. I think some of it, like, all right, here he is actually like firing the gun, like it felt a little too like Doom video gamey. But they definitely are not. It also probably. I think the graphics have been overall like great, like the effects. But no.
Now that you point that out, the one thing that took me out of the moment during the first couple of episodes was during those point of view shots. In particular, the very her visuals. There was one shot in particular where Master Chief threw his gun down, and I don't
yeah,
care
the
about the
gun is
detail.
totally fake,
I
and I
didn't.
don't know.
Yeah, the gun details don't matter. The visuals look terrible. Like it looked like a very 90s CGI gun he was throwing down.
And I
so-
just can't. I just don't understand. Like, A, why you couldn't use a prop for that, or B, why you just didn't cut that shot. It's really odd. But I mean, overall, like I think the Covenant, I feel like I was talking with our former co-host Isaac about the elites, and that especially with the language that they've given them, they just really remind me of Imhotep from the 1999 Brendan Fraser Mummy, and not in exactly a good way because they aren't supposed to be rotting dried flesh.
That's not the first protocol I would have went to mentally, but I can see it now. I can actually see that.
But the prophets, especially, I think, and again because they're actually shooting them in a weirdly bright area, they look great. So I'm curious. They've already talked about the grunts, and brutes have showed up. So I assume we're gonna get them. In this episode 3, we finally get what I feel like almost is a
Hunter.
yeah, the hunter. Seeing them, it's sort of like a apology for Halo Nightfall, which was it came out to tie into Halo 5.
Wasn't
Or no,
that
Matt-
top down game?
No, it's live action, and they go to a piece of the original Halo ring that flew off somewhere because there's this element that kills people on it, and they have to find it and break it down. And they're attacked by a bunch of hunter worms. Except it's just kind of terrible.
If
It's
you
so
want,
bad.
if you want a hook to care about it, it was directed by Ridley Scott of Alien fame, so it has a very big name attached to it. Unfortunately, the quality doesn't match the name.
And it's also they spent all this money shooting in like rugged Iceland, and it mostly just looks like they spent all this time in a gravel pit, looking sweaty and angry at each other and yelling. It's not great. But in this, like, no, the worms look great, and it's cool to see them do something that you wouldn't really get in a game. It wouldn't fit.
Yeah, can I just say, as a game player, if that happened to me in game, I would have myself and turned the game off because that's not expectations for the game.
I don't like the worms. I don't like worms. I also it didn't until Ashley mentioned it. I never really thought of the hunter worms, individual ones, looking a lot like the Goa'uld.
Earthworms.
They're like gold with earthworms.
Yeah, actually, now that you mention it, yeah. The mouths, the little mouth thing feature, yeah, that was one of the things where she was talking to the guy, and the head of one of the worms was right beside her, right beside them during the conversation in a threatening manner. That actually makes all the sense.
Yeah. And then she Maki kills the guy with a tiny nail energy blade, which is simultaneously ridiculous, and I love it. Like, why wouldn't you?
Can I just ask, as an outsider's perspective, actually, did you find any issue with that scene? Because I know the internet and Halo fans in particular felt that scene was controversial. Like, that particular use of that item was particularly controversial. Did you pick
Her
up
little
on that?
her energy nail.
Yeah.
I thought that was strange because it kind of just came out of nowhere. Is it a nail polish? Is it, like a attach-on nail? It didn't really do anything for me. It just seemed like it was a very random add-on.
Yeah, we'll see if it's Chekhov's nail blade or something, if it comes back later.
I bet she will use it against Master Chief, and I bet that Master Chief and her are related in some way.
Oh God, really? You're making that prediction? Holy hell!
I mean, why
mean-
else do they both react to the weird artifact?
Oh, see, yeah, that's something that
Because I know that apparently, okay, I read the Wikia this morning, but the Master Chief's supposed to have the genes or something that.
Oh, spoilers!
descended.
Spoilers! You're reading ahead. You're watching ahead. That's spoilers. I'm
I'm
pretty
not
sure.
watch ahead. I've been.
well, so yeah, they have all humans. They set up in the books and the games that all humans are reclaimers, but then they specify in the books, specifically the Foreigner trilogy, which is kind of like, it's like all the other books are basically military science fiction, and this is like a weird hard sci-fi, like Asimov style thing where it's the Foreigners. It's 100,000 years ago, and everything's weird. And there they have the concept of a gesh, which is basically you get these commands like implanted in you, and that's what lets those people react to Foreigner technology.
Is that your pronunciation? Because my pronunciation is different for the exact same
Yeah,
word.
no, it's I have finally learned. Yes, it looks like gay ass or something like that, but it's get. It's well, no, it's apparently like Irish or something, Danny.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's Gias, as far as I'm aware. The pronunciation
All
of
right,
the word is
well,
Gias.
that's not how.
Gay
I mean,
ass?
it's one of those things I just try not to say because I don't want to do that. But either way, so that's. I mean, they're definitely playing with that.
Yeah, but
And here they have.
that's so high concept. By the way, if you're playing the game, you press the button to shoot. That has nothing to do with such a high concept of like inherited memories via blood. You know what I mean? It's such a removal from the everyday expectations of Halo players. I'm surprised that they had any latitude to even like incorporate any sort of
Well, I think
energy
that's
of it.
why they're not. They're probably not going to go into that. Really, it's just all you need to know is that Chief is special, Maquia is special, and maybe that's as much, especially for this season, that's as much as they leave it, just because it's easier to have it narrowed down on we only think these people seem to, even though obviously the UNSC would probably have everybody like taking a turns and touching the object.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but
I mean, they kind of foreshadow that Master Chief's past memories makes him special too.
Oh
That
yeah, absolutely. I do think
yeah,
that's a thing. Yeah, absolutely. Established. There's something about Chief.
and
Yeah,
that I guess is an interesting departure because in the games they spend he had luck.
yes.
And
Cortana picked him
they
because he was
do that,
lucky.
but he's also, especially in the books, they highlight he's not necessarily the best leader. He's not the fastest. That's Kelly. He's not the best
he's quite
sniper. That's
literally
Linda.
the luckiest one. He's not the best. He's
Yeah,
just the luckiest. Yeah.
that's his special skills. But here they are sort of seeming to build him into he is not only the best Spartan, but they're building some sort of like kind of chosen thing into it.
Like a chosen one motif.
Yeah. So it'll be curious to see. And obviously I'm actually curious because it seems like so we get in this episode we get Halsey's creepy Flash clone, which in the novels was basically they were all just disembodied brains, like they were not walking around. So she gets some time to come off as a really terrible person in a way that she wasn't in them. But at the same time, it doesn't seem like from what we've seen, and they're obviously going to detail more about the Spartans because they mention here that John was adopted, and I'm like, so did they just kill off his family and then like use the disease as a cover?
Can I ask actually, because I have so much like biases from the extended lore and materials, I kind of understand exactly the story behind what Cortana is and what the images on the screen sort of imply because of what we know. I wanted to ask actually, what do you pick up on from those scenes with Cortana and Halsey and the clone? Like, is that obviously readable from how it's presented?
That Cortana is Halsey's clone.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when she was originally in the chair as a human being, it seemed like they looked the same, and then the clone was speaking as if she had the same memories. So it did make sense that they were
Yeah.
clones of one another.
That was very creepy, by the way. That conversation between Halsey and her clone, I felt like there's little moments where it's like the clone should not know these things, and there was like
Yeah, that I don't understand either. I would imagine that they'd be like, "Who am I? What is this?" But apparently, all of the memories of Halsey were imported into the clone.
And interestingly enough, that they, based on their talk, like this isn't current Halsey. It's Halsey from like 10 or 15 years earlier. She doesn't know about how the Spartans have done. So it's like the genetic material or the memories were collected a long, long time ago. Which is interesting. But yeah, Halsey's kind of terrible. But at the same time, it doesn't seem like it's interesting that they've made her more monstrous here because she like raises her own clone and then always great to have a needle to the eye. I'm not sure how that works with the brain, but
actually,
it's pretty terrible.
David, despite the obviousness of the fact we watched Halsey do this to your clone, I wanted to ask: is Halsey being a bad person something that the show makes a point of making? Like, do you feel as if watching the first 3 episodes that Halsey really is this
I mean,
bad
I think
person?
at this point, and you can disagree, Ashley. I feel like because you thought like everyone's gung ho or whatever, and like we're all in this together. You don't know about the insurrectionists, and I mean, I guess you might have learned like, oh, where did Master Chief come? Well, he's just a child soldier, and you're like, that's concerning, and you move on because it's shooting aliens. Pretty much everyone in the UNSC is treated as a bastard, which I think at this point is one of those things that people got upset about, because there are lots of people who think Halsey is terrible and people who think, oh, well, she's totally justified. But everyone is really bad in this. Usually they just have the Office of Naval Intelligence people like Parangosky. Those are the evil people. And then you have your good, upstanding military people doing things. But aside from Miranda, everyone else is like, yeah, sometimes you just got to kill a kid. It's tough.
Yeah.
Can I make special call out to the creepy assistant, Halsey's
Oh
assistant
my
in the
God.
laboratory?
I'm really curious where that one goes. If he's gonna like, I don't know, be macking on Halsey, or if that's just gonna. No, he's like, they just told him, I don't know, we've got some time to kill. Just can you be creepy? We're not gonna do anything with it, but just like really sell that you're creepy.
If creepy what he was trying to sell, he oversold it. He oversold it. Okay.
I thought he was going to keep her dead clone body and do bad things to it instead of dunking it in the fish tank.
You 100% got the expectation that if that person got the chance, they would probably do a lot worse than what we've seen. It's like
that's why you have
extreme.
cameras in the operating rooms, people. Cameras.
Yeah, actually, can I actually use that to make a point that in the first 3 episodes there was a number of scenes that they went out of their way to show, which I kind of felt they were trying to make the point. Like I'll give you an example: the child murder scene. They beat the child and then murder a child in front of the viewer, which is kind of not anywhere where any of the Halo games have ever went. And
they're definitely. I mean, they set you up like almost immediate, because it's like 10 minutes in, all of Quan's friends get gibbed. Because it's like, oh well, that's actually like what happens. Like, oh, you have plasma, it would like boil the water from your body and explode, and like it is super graphic, and it's crazy that they just blow people's heads off immediately. And it's also interesting that like the quote unquote gritty, this is not a gritty show in terms of its presentation. It's just interesting that we, like, when there was going to be a Halo film back in 2006 in Neil Blomkamp of was it District 9 or is District 13? District 9.
District 9, yeah.
Was going to do it, and he was going to like try and shoot it like a found footage war film and have like all these, as much as I might not like the Chief point of view shots, having point of view shots from the gun's perspective is infinitely worse, and that would have no doubt ended up in the Halo movie if Blomkamp had actually made it, because it ended up in District 9. So it's, in some ways, it's harkening back to, in that they have a guy get and they ended up shooting some test footage and they used it for marketing for Halo 3, and there they have like a ODST just get his brains splashed on the side of a thing because a brute hits him with a gravity hammer. So in some ways it is actually kind of going back to the ultra violence of live action Halo.
Is how sympathetic is the average viewer, like the new viewer, the virgin viewer? How is their expectations calibrated to see the so-called good guys be absolute pieces of shit? It's like humanity in the Halo show, even in the first 3 episodes, humanity is terrible. They can't deserve what's coming to them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think you just kind of root for Quan to some degree, and then for Master Chief to figure out what's going on, and then like, clean house or something. Because
you kind of have three parties. You have the insurrectionists and everyone kind of living on Garbage Island and Quan, and then you have the UNSC, who are very brutal, very utilitarian, very willing to sacrifice lives.
I should point out, they're not on Garbage Island. They're on Space Island.
Okay, Space Garbage Island.
Space Garbage Island. Yes,
Space Garbage Island. Yeah. And then the UNSC, again, utilitarian jackasses. And then we have the Covenant, who seem to be very, like, religious and...
like zealots, kind of like...
zealots and kind of mysterious, because at this point you don't know what exactly they're looking for, that you just know the...
whatever they believe in that very well. They're very dedicated to their beliefs, whatever they are.
Yeah, basically, that's kind of the the gist that I'm getting.
So I can see where some people would look at this and like, I have no one to root for.
Yeah, that's the thing. The average viewer has no one to. I think this person's in the right. There's no one in the show so far that's like 100% in the good side. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I mean, I think Kwan's close, but she's also just operating with like obviously a painful level of naivete, like which I assume is going to get beaten out of her when she shows back up on Magical. But yeah, I guess that is sort of. I don't think I'm. It's like if you don't know anything about the series and you're like, I just assumed it was a green guy who shoots aliens, that might confuse you. Because there has been aside from the opening thing, there's been very little of shooting aliens in this show. I assume we're saving it because it's expensive to do, but
I feel like they're just starting with character development and learning more about Chief's past. Master Chief is a lot more emotional than I thought he would be.
Since we're talking about Master Chief and his betrayal, well, obviously there's going to be a massive disconnect from where the games present Master Chief as a void where the player fills that void, obviously, and the shows can't do that. You can't rely on the viewer to fill a void for a character. And I think they've obviously staked their claim like this is what Master Chief is, and this is how we're going to portray him. And I think that presents a lot of difficulties for the game viewer. Like you have expectations of what Master Chief is based on your own, and going as a blank slate, you have a better opportunity to appreciate how they present that character. Does that make sense?
No, it's. I was rewatching Halo Forward Unto Dawn, and there I actually kind of feel like I liked the Chief more, and that because he was very much like you understood. He was like, oh, he's a giant robot that everyone's kind of scared of, but then he shows through his body language, oh, he's not a robot. He cares. And here, I mean, I think lots of people were expecting sort of like a Mandalorian thing where he keeps his helmet on, but even with the Mandalorian, he's taking his helmet off all the time now, guys. It's like maybe we could have gone like more than 3 episodes before we see Chief's bare ass.
Yeah, I
appreciated that.
You wanted equal opportunity. Someone I did see say like, well, as soon as we like saw like Maquis like back in her scars, I knew we were gonna just get man ass.
Yeah,
like you were right.
To be fair,
it was a good man ass. So he's physically portraying him very well.
The way modern media works, so we can't have man ass without side boobs. As soon as we seen the side boob, man ass was a guaranteed lock in. You know.
Guaranteed man ass. It's an unwritten rule. Yeah, but I think. Oh, we've kind of been wandering all over around this, but yeah, I do think to shift to like what we think to pull it off at the end of these episodes, where what else they have to do. I think they do. Chief discovering his humanity or whatever is one thing, but and I guess Cortana becoming a good guy or being on his side will help. But I do think at least Miranda Keyes needs to like fight back against the UNSC in some way. That you do need, like we were saying, you need to show that it's not all a bunch of terrible space fascists. That's kind of what I'm hoping for.
Can I just say at this point, someone please give Miranda Keyes like some independence. Like the only thing Miranda Keyes has done so far has been annoyed that her mum has been treating her like shit, and her daddy has given her an opportunity to not feel like that's the entirety of Miranda Keyes' is our like plot over the past 3 episodes. And I kind of feel it does a disservice to her agency as a character that she's only reacting to her mum and then using her dad to get back to her mom. And that feels
or Parents Goski is using her to get back to her mom.
Yeah. It feels weird, you know. It feels like Miranda Keyes as a character doesn't really exist. She exists as a reactionary figure to react to her parents, and that kind of takes away from her being anything. Like I have no idea what Miranda Keyes wants for herself. I just know what she wants based on what her parents think.
Well, hopefully she'll come into her own more in the later episodes, since right now there's so many characters for them to introduce, and everyone's kind of setting up for their own journey somewhere. So she hasn't left the ship, and she hasn't really gotten the purpose yet. So I think maybe in the coming episodes, when everyone is kind of doing their own thing, they'll kind of focus in on her a little bit and be like, yeah, she's not just dealing with her mommy issues.
That would make all the sense, and I really hope you're right, because that would actually make sense for where they've presented her so far. Because so far, it's very frustrating to see a character just being so beholden to the limited plot development of other characters. Like, come on, be yourself, do something, you know?
Yeah. Well, so that's definitely my hope that Miranda gets more to do. I do want to see. I mean, I think Soren's probably going to run around kicking some butt, but I want to see him out doing things.
Oh,
And
by
then
the
we're
way,
gonna.
David, can I just say right now, if Soren doesn't bitch slap someone with his bad hand, I'll be very disappointed. I fully expect a complete, utter badass scene where he just bitch slaps someone and disintegrates him with his overpowered disabled hand. That has to be a scene.
Actually, I was vaguely disappointed with we had at the end of this the third episode we have Master Chief rediscovering his feelings, because he's just got, and I had to explain to Ashley, like, no, they were not, like, the whole thing about they're very, very going in a very different way here, where the UNSC is trying to treat the Spartans as machines, as hardware, as much as possible, and Cortana being her origin being that is an interesting choice.
Can I just say, as a game fan, I actually appreciated the change in the lore, like the fundamental change to the Spartans' characters and identities, that they are literal machines until something happens. Like the chief becoming more human via the Forerunner artifact is a really kind of hokey plot point. But in terms of changes from the established lore, I really appreciate it. I appreciate the fact that it makes sense for these horrible inhuman killing machines to be inhuman killing machines, because what are they doing?
I mean,
They're
yeah,
literally-
they are pretty well adjusted, all things considered, for being child soldiers.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right, and I think that was also probably a choice made because, yeah, like, for the person, does the random person who just knows Master Chief from Halloween costumes and stuff, does he know that there's a person in there? Probably not. And so you're kind of just working from the assumption that they are like, oh, it's just a cool guy who kills aliens and doesn't afraid of anything.
Yeah, 100%, 100%.
I mean, even when you were playing the games, though, you do get a sense of Master Chief's personality over time. But I feel like the way they portray Master Chief in the series, it's really in your face how just angsty he is, and from the get go too. And
Okay,
I
is
don't
that a
know.
bad
I
thing?
don't.
Is that a
I-
bad thing, though?
I just think it's too in your face. Like Master Chief was a little bit more subtle. Like you knew he was struggling with some stuff, but he wasn't doing the equivalent of sighing and being like, "What's wrong?" Nothing. Like that's the kind of vibe I'm getting from Master Chief in the
Yeah,
show.
but the difference is, whenever you get that impression from the game, that's literally in between level 1 and level 2 of you shooting 500 random aliens in the face and shooting 500 more aliens in the face. Like, there's a disconnect between, like, the expectations and time delivery of how a TV show would deliver those points versus whenever you're in a video game. In a video game, you need every 5 seconds to be doing something. In a TV show or a movie, you need to allow the characters to impede and impart that sort of conveyance of plot and story without your ability to impact it, if you know what I mean. So you don't get the immediate sort of reward of, I killed aliens and here's my reward for it, versus here's 10 minutes of a very prolonged scene of this character imparting the same information without that sort of nice nicotine hit of, well, you did the thing and here's your reward for it.
Yeah, I guess I will just have to continue watching to see whether or not this kind of portrayal grows on me.
If the angst is earned for you.
We will see. I mean, it is releasing weekly, so I feel like I'm waiting for something and getting that nicotine hit.
Yeah.
Jonesing for it. Remember when they made stuff for streaming and they just dropped it all so you could binge it?
Oh god.
I miss those
yeah.
days. And now they've realized, wait, this is a terrible idea. We want to, like, keep the buzz going by having it drop weekly. Like, it makes sense for what they're doing. It's just, yeah, we have to wait till mid-May to see it. But I am definitely hopeful. And I definitely think the biggest criticism I've seen is that, for better or worse, like, the changes they have made are 100% intentional. It's not like these guys didn't read Halo, because if you, like, go through, and Halo Canon on YouTube has a great, like, episode by episode breakdowns of this, there is, like, a reference to the Meg Easter egg from Halo Combat Evolved. Like, that is a super obscure, random little Easter egg that
Yep.
no one would know about, and it's in there. Like, they clearly know, like, down to like specific the planets that they had show up. They have definitely put in their homework, and they're making choices.
As a long-term fan, a lot of the initial criticism of the show was during the pre-release hype, the showrunners gave some interviews, and one of the interviews they sort of said really clearly that they didn't play the games prior to doing the work on the show. And I think people conflated their admittance of not playing the games to not actually understanding the plot of the games and not understanding, the basic sort of setup of what the games present. And a lot of people conflate not playing it directly with not understanding and not making reference to that. And I don't find that to be a valid criticism, because if you watch the show, you can tell there's so many deep cuts and deep changes where you can tell someone obviously paid too much attention to the overall universe. There's no way that you could have got to where the show is without paying too much attention. And I think as a surface level criticism of, well, the showrunners didn't play the game, so they don't understand what's happening, I don't think that's valid. I think that's a misinterpretation of where fans want to criticize the showrunners for something they aren't doing.
Mm-hmm. Well, we'll see where it goes, and if those people will be happier when they've finally seen everything. All right. Any final thoughts?
I am. Oh, one thing. You guys don't think we'll see the flood at all this season, huh?
Season 5. Season 5. I
Season
can't wait for season 5.
Oh.
Season 5.
I mean,
we'll be hyped.
they actually, like, one of the things Halo Canon brought up was that they specifically mention containment stuff, which in the Prime canon is all about the flood. But I think that's just kind of an Easter egg for, like, yeah.
I have zero, as a game fan, I have zero expectation of flood being relevant to this show until it's past being firmly established. Because we won't care what happens to these characters. We won't care about the body horror aspects that the flood represents in the games. Like, that won't be relevant until we're well past the point of deeply caring for a number of characters. And to say that we're not there after episode 3 would be an understatement.
Yeah, I think it's season 2 thing. Although, like, considering, like, yeah, we're killing kids and blowing up people's heads and sticking them with eyes. I am super excited to see them pull that off in I mean, not technically unrated, but a TVMA for streaming only kind of stuff. It's gonna be cool.
If you're willing to kill children for entertainment, there's no holds bars anymore. Like, I can't wait until you get to that point.
I did laugh when we were watching the flashbacks, because there was that moment where the dad's explaining, "Oh, you have to go bury it," or whatever, and we're like, oh, well, is Chief just remembering that he buried this artifact? There was this point where I was really concerned that, especially since you see his dog and then you don't see his dog, that his dog had to kill his dog and bury it. I was like, wait, this is really going a different path.
I'm so glad. I actually thought it was the dog. I thought the dog was the important thing that was buried and that he had trauma over, and it was actually just a stupid artifact. I'm so happy it was an artifact.
We have not killed the dog. We're not.
Yeah,
that's
a whole other level of
children. Yeah, whatever. Dog.
Yes, exactly.
I'm so glad, because me and Ellen, when we were watching that, we genuinely thought it was the dog. Like, what the are we doing to the poor damn dog in these flashbacks?
Well, we will see. We'll definitely, once everything wraps up in May, we'll talk about it. So thanks for coming on, Ashley, and providing your valuable perspective.
Well, thanks for having me on. This has been pretty fun.
Okay. That wraps up the show today. And so show notes and links for this episode, as well as articles and more, can be found on our website, forwardtodon.com. You can subscribe to the podcast via iTunes, Spotify, or Stitcher. Check out our videos at YouTube /ForwardToDon, or follow us on Twitter for updates on all our content at the handle @ForwardDon. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.